Welcome back to the fundamental unit of life, module 2. In this module, we are going to study about the components of cell. Basically, cell have been classified into 4 major parts: the outermost covering, cell wall and the cell membrane. Then there is the controlling unit, which is nucleus. Then a fluid which is filled inside the cell called as cytoplasm, and small particles or membrane bound structures which are present inside the cell called as cell organelles. In this module, we are going to study about cell wall, cell membrane and nucleus. So let us move on to the cell wall. Now, cell wall is the outermost covering of the cell. It is non-living, very important, note it. It is non-living, thick and freely permeable. Freely permeable means that it allows all the substance to move in and out of the cell. Another major thing which you have to remember is that cell wall is present only in case of plant cells. It is absent in animal cell. However, it is present both in eukaryotic and prokaryotic cells. Next, we can move on to the functions of the cell wall. Now, in the function of the cell wall, you can say that cell wall is just giving shape and rigidity to the cell. You all know that the skeletal system is not there in case of plants, and the skeletal system in case of animal is responsible to give it shape. So, the same function is being done by the cell wall here. It determines the shape and rigidity of the cell. Besides that, just inside the cell wall is a cell membrane. So, it also protects that cell membrane and also prevents the dryness of cell. Next, we move on to the cell membrane and the plasma membrane. Cell wall was dead, but cell membrane is living part of the cell. It just separates the external environment from the inner content of the cell. This living cell membrane, also called as plasma membrane, is present in all the cells, the plant, the animal, as well as microorganisms. Then it is very thin, delicate, elastic and semi-permeable. This is very important term. Semi-permeable membrane means it is selectively permeable. That is, it allows the entry and exit of certain substances only. In other words, I can say it controls the entry and exit of substances. It is the cell membrane which decides which substance should go inside the cell or which substance should come out of the cell. Just if I compare it up, it is, you can say, it is just like your guard bhaiya of the school. They control who should go out of the school and who should come inside the school. Wo control karte hain. Just like that the cell membrane does. So remember, it is selectively permeable membrane. Now, what it is made up of? It is made up of lipids and protein. Lipid word is a special form of fat. So, it is made up of lipid and proteins, and it is a bilayer. Or in other words, you can say it is a layered structure. For the figure, I am just showing you the figure. The yellow portion is the lipid, and between the purple and the green things which you are seeing are the proteins. So, now you can understand that it is a layered structure. So, that was about the structure of the cell membrane and plasma membrane. Next, we are moving on to the functions of the cell membrane. Cell membrane controls the gaseous exchange between the cell and its external environment. Gaseous exchange. Gaseous exchange means exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Cell is living, so it will also respire, and when it will respire, it will produce carbon dioxide. This carbon dioxide needs to go out and oxygen should come inside of the cell. and this takes place by the process of diffusion. We have already studied about diffusion, the movement of material from higher concentration to lower concentration. Oxygen is more outside the cell, so it moves in, and carbon dioxide is more inside the cell, so it moves out of the cell by the process of diffusion. Besides this, it also controls the entry of water molecules, the water which enters the cell, but this again does by the another process which is called as osmosis. This is a new process which you are going to study, and definitely you need to know the difference between osmosis and diffusion. Diffusion was the process where the movement of the particles were taking place from higher concentration to lower concentration. Here, the movement is of the solvent particles or water. Solid never moves. Remember that. It is the movement of solvent particles or water from the region of its higher concentration to its lower concentration. Its higher means जहाँ पानी का concentration ज़्यादा है. From that side to the other side which is having lower concentration of water through semi-permeable membrane. Again, very important. It's only through semi-permeable membrane. In case of diffusion, semi-permeable membrane was not required, but in case of osmosis, semi-permeable membrane is a must. Again, I define osmosis. It is the process of movement of solvent or water molecules from the region of its higher concentration to region of its lower concentration through semi-permeable membrane. To showcase it, there you can see a GIF shown below, where you are seeing on one side the water is moving down to the other side. On the left hand side is a low concentrated solution. Low concentrated means less solute, more solvent or water. On the right hand side is a concentrated solution. That means water is less and the solute particles are more. And in between is the semi-permeable membrane. So what happens? The water moves from left to right. So you can see that it decreases, and on the other side the water increases. And the selectively permeable membrane is same as the plasma membrane. So this GIF is showing you the process of osmosis. To further explain the process of osmosis, here we are taking three types of solutions. One which is less concentrated, of same concentration, and of more concentration. First one is the hypotonic solution. Hypotonic means the concentration of the solution is less as compared to that of the cell. Now when we place a cell inside such type of solution, what will happen? Since the concentration of water is more outside, it is a less concentrated. So concentration of water is more outside the cell. So water will move from outside to inside. The best example for this is if you put down the raisins in water, you find that the raisins swell up. This is why. This is again because of the process of osmosis. The water moves from higher concentration to lower concentration which was inside the raisin or the cell. As a result of which the cell becomes swelled up or it becomes turgid. In the figure you can see that the water is moving inside and cell is increasing in size. Again I like to mention here two more terms, endoosmosis and exosmosis. The movement of water inside the cell is called as endoosmosis, and movement of the water outside the cell is called as exosmosis. Next we take the second type of solution. It is the isotonic solution. Iso means same. Isotonic solution, that means the concentration of the solution is same as that of the cell. So what do you think would happen? Yes, there would be no change in the shape or size of the cell because the concentration is same. So no, so water will not move inside nor the water will come outside. But again, remember, this doesn't mean that there is no movement of water. Here the movement of water would be there, but the rate at which the water is moving inside the cell is same as that moving outside the cell. So the cell remains same, neither it swells up nor it shrinks. In other words, I can say endoosmosis is equal to exoosmosis in case of isotonic solutions. So here the cell shape and the size of the cell remain same. One arrow inside and one arrow moving outside. Next we take up the third type of solution, hypertonic solution. Hypertonic solution is the solution which is having more concentration than the cell. In other words, the water outside is now less. More concentrated means less water. So outside the water is now less, but inside the cell the water is more. So what do you think now it will happen? Yes, now the water will move out of the cell. You can see the figure. The number of arrows moving out are more than the number of arrows which are moving inside. Or in other words, the exoosmosis is more than endoosmosis. What will happen as a result of this? The cell will shrink, and this you can see out here. You can see that the shape and the size of the cell is changing and all the water is moving out of the cell. So understood the three types of solutions: hypo, iso and hypertonic solution. Now back to the functions of the cell. Two main functions we have studied. Now the other special function of the cell membrane is also endocytosis and exocytosis. These terms may sound special or different, but actually you have seen this process. Remember amoeba? How does the amoeba takes its food? By the help of food vacuole, if you remember, you have studied already. The formation of the food vacuole happens when the amoeba engulfs that food particle. And this is what is endocytosis. And after the digestion of the food, that food vacuole is thrown out of the amoeba's body. And that is what is exocytosis. And next, I'm just showing you the process how the endocytosis is taking place. You can see here in form of the GIF shown on the slide. So I hope so you understand what you mean by taking up of the food, endocytosis. Okay, the another special function is plasmolysis. This is again a new term for you. If I place any cell in a hypertonic solution, you know that the water will move outside. But if the cell is left out there for very long hours, when all the water moves out, what happens in that case? In that case, the cell content leave the cell membrane and start shrinking and coming in the center of the cell. This state is called as plasmolysis. That means when all the water moves out of the cell and the cell content start leaving the cell membrane and start shrinking, this process is called as plasmolysis. Generally, if the dehydration takes place inside our body, then this process actually starts. In case of acute dehydration, that means moving out of water from the cell. So these are the two special functions, endocytosis or exocytosis and plasmolysis. So that was all about the cell membrane. Next we are moving to the nucleus. Nucleus is the controlling unit of cell, and this is very important part of the cell. Generally in case of animal cells it is at the center, but in case of plant cell it is on the periphery or towards the membrane. First of all, we will take up the structure of the nucleus. nucleus generally has four main parts. First one is the nuclear membrane. It is just like an envelope which totally encloses the nucleus. Then comes the fluid part or the gelatinous substance which is filled inside the nucleus. That gelatinous substance is called as nucleoplasm. Then comes another very major part, very important part of the nucleus, the nucleolus. We also call it as a brain of the nucleus. In the diagram you can see the purple portion is the nucleolus. It occupies about 25% volume of the total nucleus. Now the thread-like structures which you are seeing out there in the diagram, that is the fourth part of the nucleus and we call it as chromatin material. This chromatin material is very important part of the nucleus because it is this portion which is containing the genes and is responsible for the transmission of the hereditary characters from parents to offspring. This chromatin material, during that process of transference or cell division, that changes into rod-like structures called as chromosomes, and genes are located on these chromosomes. Now, before taking up the function of the nucleus, in case of prokaryotic cells, this nucleus is not that developed. All these four parts you don't see in case of prokaryotic cell. It is an underdeveloped nucleus without any nuclear membrane. And that underdeveloped or less developed nucleus is called as nucleoid. Nucleoid. It's written down there, nucleoid. Remember that. So in case of prokaryotic cell, nucleus is not there, nucleoid is there. Next we move on to the function of the nucleus. So function of the nucleus, as I told you, nucleus is a controlling unit. So the first function is the same, it controls all the metabolic activities of the cell. Next, since it is having the chromatin material, so it is also responsible for the transmission of hereditary information from parents to offspring. Now this hereditary information is stored in the chromatin material. From that chromatin material, the chromosomes develop, and from that chromosomes, inside that chromosomes, the genes are located on the DNA. In the diagram, if you see, that purple portion, smiling portion, is actually the DNA. It is this DNA which has code, and as per that code, some proteins are synthesized. So that flying out portions are your protein which are being formed on the basis of the code on the DNA, and these proteins design your body. So altogether I can see that nucleus is responsible for protein synthesis, cell division, growth and differentiation. That's all for today, and the next two components of the cell, that is the cytoplasm and cell organelles. We'll cover that in the next module. Till then, bye-bye.